It started with a CC I wasn't supposed to see. I was wrapping up month-end reports when the email came in. Subject line: Wire confirmation. Lantra Systems, LLC. I didn't recognize the company, but I recognized the name in the wire details. Mine. At first, I thought it was a scam, a phishing test, maybe, but the email came from our CFO, and it had attachments, real bank confirmations, tax ID numbers, LLC paperwork, all legitimate, all tied to me. Lantra Systems, LLC, a company I had never heard of, filed under my name, with my signature on the documents, except I had never signed anything. I froze, checked my calendar, checked my memory, checked my pulse. Then I checked the state registration site. There it was. Owner, Rachel Lynn. Registered agent, Rachel Lynn. Federal EIN matched my social security record. My name, my tax ID, my responsibility. I worked in accounting. I'd helped file plenty of LLC paperwork for the company, but nothing like this. I scrolled through the attachments again. The articles of incorporation were filed 8 months ago. The signature looked like mine, but off. Too tidy. It looked like someone practicing my name. There was a corporate bank account, too, opened using my employment documents, set up with transfers that matched projects from our parent company, but all filtered through this separate entity. I remembered something my boss had said months earlier, handing me a stack of documents. Don't worry about that stuff. It's all just internal structuring. That's what he called a company built in my name. I stayed late that night. The printer was quiet as I pulled hard copies of every file that mentioned Lantra, and then I saw it. A subcontractor invoice signed off by me, except I hadn't touched that project. The line between oversight and orchestration wasn't blurry anymore. It was deliberate, and I wasn't just a name on paper. I was the fall guy disguised as the founder. I didn't reply to the email. I didn't ask questions. I opened a new browser tab, typed in corporate identity theft, then added, "Can your employer open a company under your name?" Because maybe it wasn't just an error. Maybe it was a system. And I was about to find out who really built it. When I first joined the company, I thought I got lucky. It was my third job out of college, and the only one where someone actually took time to explain things. My boss, Mark, was different. At least, that's how it seemed. He remembered birthdays, asked about your dog, brought coffee when you looked tired, and he always said the same thing. "You're one of the sharp ones. Rachel, stick with me, and you'll go far." So I did. I worked late, picked up slack, helped build the back-end reporting system from scratch. He never micromanaged me. Instead, he kept saying, "You've got a mind for structure. I trust you." At first, that meant copying him on investor updates or running numbers for new project models. But eventually, it turned into more ambiguous requests. "Can you sign this? It's just an internal memo banking compliance. Hey, scan this to your ID. It's easier for onboarding the new entity. Can I use your work email to test our external server sync?" They were small things, easy to justify in a fast-paced startup where everyone wears multiple hats. And every time I asked for clarification, he had the same smile. "Relax. You're protected. I'm the one taking the risk here." I believed him. He made it feel like mentorship. But it wasn't. It was misdirection. Each small favor I agreed to, each blind signature, shared login, shortcut, wasn't scattered. It was coordinated. Sometimes I wondered why he picked me. I wasn't flashy. I didn't network. I wasn't trying to be noticed. But maybe that was the point. I was stable, quiet, the kind of employee who didn't question too much as long as the numbers lined up. And he knew it. There was even a moment months back when he laughed after I signed a vendor contract without reading every page. "See? That's why I trust you. You don't get caught in the weeds." Now I understood. He didn't trust me. He counted on me not looking too closely. The praise, the casual confidence, the freedom, none of it was mentorship. It was insulation. He made sure I'd feel chosen, so I wouldn't ask why. And soon, I'd be documenting every answer. I didn't confront Mark. Not yet. You don't walk into a situation like this with feelings. You walk in with files. So I started digging. The state's business registration portal showed Lantra Systems as active, domestic limited liability company, filed under my name. I downloaded everything. Certificate of formation, Einregistration, business license. The email trail went back nearly a year. Most were system-generated. Banking alerts, Stripe updates, invoices. But the email address listed on everyone, Mina. My name, my tax ID, my contact info. But none of it connected to any account I had access to. Then came the vendor forms. I pulled up an old shared drive Mark had asked me to archive months earlier. Inside, buried under folders titled Temp Review and Internal Backlog. I found copies of contracts with third-party vendors I'd never spoken to signed under my name. One of them was for API security auditing. The client, our own parent company. That's when it clicked. Lantra wasn't just a shell. It was a pipeline. Our company was outsourcing work to me. I'd been turned into a contractor I didn't know I was. And Mark, he was moving money through me without ever touching it directly. I didn't tell anyone, not even Erica, my roommate and closest friend, but I wasn't ready to speak yet. I was still too close, too unsure. So I did what I knew how to do. I audited. I opened Excel, created a master ledger, every signature, every payment, every document that bore my name without my knowing. I labeled them. One night, around 1:00 m, I found a purchase order signed by Rachel Lynn that matched a project I'd actually managed, except the amount was double. Half had gone through Lantra. The rest, no record at all. That was the moment I stopped asking if this was accidental. It wasn't, Mark had once said. If we ever go public, the paper trail has to be pristine. Now I understood why. Because he'd already written my part in it, and I was about to rewrite it. The next red flag didn't come from a document. It came from an IT guy in the hallway. He was new, maybe 2 weeks in. Quiet, friendly, the kind who nodded instead of talking. That day, he stopped me by the elevator and said, "Hey, Rachel, I fixed that login issue for the second entity you're managing. The sandbox should sync now." I blinked. "What second entity?" He hesitated, then smiled like it was nothing. "Sorry, I assumed you knew. Lantra and Crosshatch both use your credentials for back-end testing." Crosshatch. That wasn't in my ledger. I went back to my desk and searched the name. Found it buried in a shared Slack thread from 6 months ago mentioned once as Mark's Skunkworks project. Skunkworks. In other words, the shadow system. I checked the state business registry again. Crosshatch Analytics, LLC. Registered 3 weeks after Lantra. Same address. Same structure. And, once again, listed under me. But this time, the email tied to it wasn't mine. It was a slight variation, or Lynn instead of R. Lynn? That's when the second wave hit. How many companies had he built under me? How many accounts? How many signatures? I searched all known aliases of my name. Scanned every inbox I had access to. It was like watching your shadow move without you. This wasn't one fake entity. This was an infrastructure. Mark hadn't just used me as a stand-in. He had modeled the entire flow of money around the legal identity of a single, unsuspecting employee. Me. And he'd done it so quietly, so surgically, that even I believed I was still in control. I printed out both LLC filings, laid them side by side on my kitchen table that night. Lantra. Crosshatch. Same registered address, same agent, same deposit, one number apart. They weren't random. They were sequenced. The illusion of separation was the point. On paper, 2 independent vendors. In practice, 2 shells in the same game. This wasn't a bad setup. It was a machine, and I was about to start shutting it down. By then, I had a folder labeled Fractional Me. It lived on an encrypted USB, hidden inside a hollowed-out copy of an old economics textbook on my shelf. No one touched it. No one knew it existed. Inside, spreadsheets, invoices, state filings, metadata, screenshots of Slack threads, payment trails, matching vendors, alias emails. This wasn't paranoia anymore. It was evidence. What started as a hunch had become a schema. Each row in my ledger was another node in Mark's shadow system entities designed to route funds, clean profits, and disappear blame. But the deeper I looked, the more I realized how careful he'd been. He never reused emails, never left his name on anything. Every transaction looked normal until you lined them up side by side. He built a structure that relied on me not seeing the whole picture. And for a while, I didn't. But now I had the ledger. It showed how internal projects were outsourced to me through fake vendor contracts, how markup rates were inflated, profits pocketed, how payments were broken into pieces, reissued, delayed. I needed a second pair of eyes, so I called Erica. She was in bed, still half asleep when I dropped the USB on her nightstand. "I need you to look at this." Like, legally. She pulled on her glasses, clicked through a few files, then sat up. "Jesus. Rachel, this isn't sketchy. This is criminal. We stayed up until 3. "Sewa es." Erica opened one document after another, cross-referencing registration dates, IP logs, and transaction amounts. "You're not just a name on this stuff. You're the foundation. Every line leads back to you." The contracts were airtight in formatting. Standard language, Nothing outrageous. That's what made them so dangerous. Mark had baked plausible deniability into every layer. If you hadn't found this, she said, and something collapsed, you'd be the one answering subpoenas. Actually, you still might be, unless we get ahead of it. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just cleanup anymore. It was protection. And maybe for the first time in this entire situation, I wasn't alone in it. Once Erica saw it, she couldn't unsee it. We started mapping the shell companies out on her living room wall. Old-school style printouts, sticky notes, string. I thought she was kidding when she pulled out thumbtacks. She wasn't. Within 3 days, we had 6 entities, 4 registered under my name, 2 under variations of it, and 1 under a name that didn't belong to me at all, but used my tax ID. That one scared us the most. We dug deeper, checked state filings, domain registrations, payment processors. Some were linked through bank accounts, others through shared email servers. All had overlapping clients, the same few vendors, and the same payout structure: high overhead, low tax, zero accountability. Each of these companies was designed to look clean, but only when viewed alone. Together, they told a story. He's not just using your name, Erica said. He's running a private economy. That's what it was. A private system, one where Mark could route money off books, inflate costs, filter investments, and pin the liability on someone else. Me. And not just me. That's when I remembered Celeste. She'd worked in admin before me. Quiet, sharp, gone without explanation 6 months earlier. I messaged her on LinkedIn. It took 2 days, but she finally replied. You too, she wrote. I tried to speak up. They called it misconduct and cut me loose. Different state, same model. Erica flagged 2 of the EIN registrations as highly suspicious. The dates were identical, filed minutes apart. The digital signature block was blank, but the IP logs were nearly identical. Same computer, same session. We ran every company name through a compliance database she had access to from her job. One of the vendors, Norwell Data Systems, had appeared in 2 unrelated investigations involving fraud and ghost billings. What scared me wasn't the sophistication, it was the simplicity. He didn't need a complicated scam. He had the right cover. Compliant? Overlooked employees with clean records and good intentions. People like Celeste. People like me. That's when I understood this wouldn't stop if I stayed quiet. This wouldn't just bury my name. It would stain it. We didn't go to the police first. We went to IT. Erica had a friend, Alex, who worked security at a larger firm but owed her a favor. He came over on a Sunday, looked at our digital folder, and said one thing. This is enough to make him nervous, not enough to make him fall. So we built the trap. We didn't need him to confess. We needed him to confirm. I sent Mark a Slack message. Hey, got a strange IRS notification tied to Lantra. Can we talk? His reply came in minutes. Whoa! No idea why they'd contact you directly. I'll check. I let it sit, then followed up. Also saw crosshatch listed on my credit report. Is that normal? He suggested we meet in person. I agreed. We booked a conference room at the office. Erica waited in the cafe across the street. Mark was calm when he walked in, smiling. Casual, like nothing had shifted. Look, these back-end setups are messy, he said, but you're not exposed. It's all under corporate umbrellas. I asked, why is everything under my name? Because you're trusted. You've got the cleanest record. That's why it works. He said it works like we were partners, like I had consented. I asked if there were any other companies tied to me. He didn't answer. That was the answer. He spent 15 minutes trying to reassure me, how everything was legal, how I'd benefit when it scaled, how I just had to trust the process. He didn't know the room was being recorded. I left the meeting with a smile, thanked him, told him I appreciated the transparency. Then I walked across the street. Erica pulled out her laptop and hit stop. We had what we needed. Not drama, not an explosion, just a calm, recorded moment where he admitted everything, because he thought I still belonged to the plan. What struck me most wasn't what he said. It was how easy it came out of him. He even ended with, I wouldn't have trusted this with anyone else. You're different. I used to believe that line. Now I heard it for what it was. Insulation. We filed the report on a Monday. Erica helped draft the documentation. Alex cleaned the metadata. I attached every signature, invoice, and recording. It went to 3 places. The State Attorney General, the SEC, and the IRS. We didn't hear anything for 2 weeks. Then someone showed up. It wasn't dramatic. Just an internal audit notice slipped under Mark's door. He looked pale that morning, walked past my desk without saying a word. That was new. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Turns out, when you build an entire system on someone else's name, and they bring receipts, the system folds quickly. They froze Lantra's accounts first, then Crosshatch, then 2 others I hadn't even found yet. Calls were rerouted. Slack went silent. By the end of the week, Mark was placed on administrative leave pending internal review. The CFO resigned the same day. No one spoke to me directly, but they didn't have to. People started clearing my path in the hallway, like I was radioactive or holy. I wasn't either. I was just done being used. When the state followed up, they offered me limited immunity in exchange for testimony. I agreed on one condition. I want full disclosure. Every company tied to my name, every transaction, every file. They said yes. That weekend, I printed the list they gave me. 9 companies, 6 active, 3 dissolved in the last 90 days. He'd kept building even after I found out. That was the part that stunned me most. He didn't believe I'd follow through. He thought I'd blink. He was wrong. Because the moment I saw my name detached from my control, I stopped being scared, and I started being precise. I didn't celebrate. There were no champagne toasts or I told you so moments. It didn't feel like power. It felt like clarity. Mark hadn't just underestimated me. He had misunderstood me. He thought silence was weakness. But I had proof, and the weight of it was finally working. The company didn't fire Mark. They let him resign to pursue new ventures. His goodbye email thanked everyone for believing in innovation. No one replied. The board settled with me quietly. They offered a financial resolution, a written apology, and full legal indemnity. I took it. I didn't want revenge. I wanted separation. And I got it. 3 weeks later, I cleared out my desk. There was no spectacle, no confrontation, just a cardboard box, a final logout, and a long walk through the lobby. People avoided eye contact. Some nodded. A few smiled weakly, but most just pretended not to see me. That was fine. I wasn't there to be seen. I moved out of the city the next day, found a short-term rental near the coast. Quiet place, ocean air, no signal unless I wanted it. I didn't tell anyone where I went. Not even Erica, not right away. Because for the first time in years, I didn't owe anyone updates. I wasn't someone's daughter, someone's employee, someone's fallback. I was just Rachel, again. And that was more than enough. Most mornings, I made tea and walked barefoot to the edge of the bluff. There was a bench there, nothing special. Just old wood and rusted bolts. But it faced the water, and the view didn't ask anything of me. Some days I read, some days I wrote, some days I did nothing but breathe. I didn't post about what happened. No cryptic captions. No new chapter selfies. I archived my accounts, changed my number, turned off notifications. I'd learned that visibility was a kind of currency, and I didn't want to spend it anymore. Erica visited once. A month later. You look like someone who finally stepped out of someone else's frame. I laughed, but she was right. For so long, I'd been edited into a version of someone else's vision. Now I was back in focus. Not heroic, not famous, just mean. There was one last document I kept a printout of the final corporate list. 9 companies, all closed. I framed it, not out of pride, out of proof that I'd been through something real, that I left it standing. I wrote it a dozen times. Sometimes it started with Dear Mark. Sometimes it didn't start at all. It wasn't a letter of anger. It wasn't a demand. It was an inventory of what he took, of what I learned, of what I rebuilt. At first, it was full of what-ifs. What if you had just asked? What if you had trusted me enough to be honest? What if we had actually built something together? But over time, the tone shifted. I stopped writing to him like someone I missed, and started writing like someone I survived. I told him I forgave the convenience, not the calculation. The ease with which he used me, not because he had to, but because he could. I didn't frame myself as a victim, just a witness. Someone who saw the gears turn and chose to step out before they crushed me. In the last version of the letter, I wrote this. You didn't break me. You rerouted me. And in the quiet where you left my name, I finally heard my own. I never sent it. Not because I was afraid. Because it wasn't for him. It was for me. For the part of me that stayed quiet too long. For the part that signed without asking. For the part that mistook silence for stability. I folded the final version and put it in the same hollow book that once held the USB. Next to the receipts. Next to the ledger. Next to the truth. There were parts I almost deleted. The lines where I admitted how long I'd looked up to him. How I once defended him in meetings. How I genuinely believed I mattered in the story he was writing. But I left them in, not out of nostalgia, out of honesty. I wanted the letter to hold all of it. The trust. The erosion. The moment I drew the line and didn't flinch. When I reread it now, it doesn't sting. It steadies me. I still keep that hollow book on my shelf. But now it holds something more than evidence. It holds a boundary. A decision. A reminder. I don't need closure from him. I already gave it to myself. Because sometimes the cleanest revenge is clarity. And sometimes the last word is choosing not to speak it.